Now, contrary to common belief, ancient Egypt is single-handedly the most researched subject in the world. And conversely, ancient Egypt is also the least understood of all known subjects on the planet, despite what mainstream academia will have you believe. Now, I know what some people at home are going to say. This is an incongruity. I mean, how could Egypt be so well researched, yet at the same time, we don't understand very much about it today? Well, the truth of the matter is, modern day anthropologists have a pretty good idea of what transpired in ancient Egypt nearly 5,000 years ago. The problem is, and I want to reiterate for the people in the back, the problem is racism and Eurocentrism. And before anyone gets all bent out of shape and tries to contest what I'm saying, allow me to prove the validity of my claim. Let's assume that I'm a racist who doesn't like black people. And let's assume that I also have control over the printing press, the distribution of books, media, television, scholarships, schools, and other learning institutions. Now, do you think for a second that I would tell the truth about the amazing contributions that African people made to the world? Or do you think that I would do everything in my power to lie and uphold the myth of European superiority? Now, what most people don't understand is that when Egypt was first being studied, slavery was still being institutionalized all over the world. And under no circumstances, and I mean under no circumstances, could the truth about ancient Egypt be uncovered or revealed to the masses. To suggest that black people were anything other than savages, hut builders, or slaves would upset the European status quo. For if anyone were to ever find out that black people, aka the Egyptians, and yes, I said black people were the Egyptians, were the true creators of civilization, astronomy, and the technology that we are using today, it would prove without a shadow of a doubt that the Europeans of that time period were not the true creators of science, reading, math, or philosophy. And what they should be known for is altering history. Now, at this particular point in time in the story, I want to throw out a disclaimer so everybody at home cannot misinterpret what I'm saying. Am I saying that every European on Earth altered history in an attempt to make themselves look superior to other groups of people? Absolutely not. That'd be ridiculous. Am I saying that certain Europeans in that time frame and some Europeans now in this millennia have altered history in an attempt to make themselves look superior to black people? Absolutely. Let me give you a real life example to prove the validity of my claim. In the mid 1790s, a French count by the name of Constantine de Volney published a book entitled The Ruins of Empires. In this book, Volney chronicled his travels to Egypt between 1783 to 1785. This book immediately became an instant bestseller in France, and it wasn't long before it was translated in English by Thomas Jefferson for an American audience. Now, what most people are not aware of is that since African people were still being enslaved in the Americas around this time, the publishers decided to delete special segments of the text in order to hide the truth about African people. You know, because Europeans couldn't have the truth about black people coming out. Complete sentences were deleted or altered from pages 15, 16, and 17. Now, fortunately for us today, I have a copy of his original text in all of its glory. Begin quote,
"They are a people now forgotten, who discovered, while others were yet barbarians, the elements of the arts and sciences. A race of men now ejected from society for their sable skin and frizzled hair, founded on the study of laws of nature, those civil and religious systems which still govern the universe."
Now, I know some people at home are going to do their best to refute this passage, but before you do that, ask yourself a serious question. If this passage really didn't mean anything and it didn't substantiate that African people were actually the creators of civilization and other individuals were just savages during the time period that Africans were around, as Volney stated, then why was this passage omitted from his text? Why was Thomas Jefferson so concerned that he had to take this passage out if it truly didn't mean anything? The reason that this quote was omitted from Volney's book was because this passage validates what I had stated earlier about the Egyptians being black. It also substantiated that African individuals were the first people on Earth to create civilization. Nearly 100 years later, the African-American scholar W.E.B. Du Bois provided us with an explanation of the Europeans' inability to accept the fact that the people of the Nile were the first to create civilization. Begin quote, "The rise and the support of capitalism called for the rationalization based upon degrading and discrediting the Negroid peoples. It is especially significant that the science of Egyptology arose and flourished at the very time that the Cotton Kingdom reached its greatest power on the foundation of American Negro slavery. And if that is not enough proof for you, check this out. This quote comes from Sheikh Anta Diop's African Origins of Civilization. Begin quote. In 1799, Napoleon undertook his campaign in Egypt. Thanks to the Rosetta Stone, hieroglyphics were deciphered in 1822 by Champollion the Younger. Egyptologists were dumbfounded with admiration for the past grandeur and perfection then discovered. They gradually recognized it as the most ancient civilization that had engendered all others. But imperialism being what it is, it became increasingly inadmissible to continue to accept the theory, evident until then, of a Negro Egypt. The birth of Egyptology was thus marked by the needs to destroy the memory of a Negro Egypt at any cost and in all minds.